It's a joy to serve our family. We all talk about like we can't wait to be moms. We can't wait to get married. And then we're in those roles and we act like it's such a hardship.
We really do. We have to love ourselves before we can go impact and change other individuals.
We can choose our response to every situation and every circumstance we find ourselves in life.
Good morning. Welcome to Courageous Conversations, where we look our fears directly in the eye and face them fierce with reality. Today, I'm so happy to have with me Dr. Barbara Eaton, whose heart is as big as Alaska, and she's also Alaska tough. And notice I didn't say Texas
No
there.
Texas.
No Texas, only Alaska.
That's right.
Barbara is an amazing individual who coaches one of the world-leading chiropractic women groups. And she indeed is so genuine and so real and so much heart. What first aligned me to Barbara is a conversation that we had where she was able to so real and so honestly and genuinely share with me a very difficult thing that occurred in her life, the breakdown of a trust relationship. And unlike most people who run and hide from it, she accepted and says, I took part and participated in that, even though I think the perception in the world would be that you didn't. And I so respected that, Barb. So, Barbara, thank you so much for joining me today on Courageous Conversations.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you.
Barbara, would you share a little bit the story that I just referenced of where you had a very difficult relationship breakdown and the conclusions that you came to?
Unfortunately, it's a situation that not only a lot of women find themselves in, but men as well. And that was, I was married to a man who was unfaithful for 10 years. And by his own admission had over 40 other partners during our 10 years of marriage. And for years, I very eloquently wore the victimized woman, the scorned woman. And then at some point, the Holy Spirit came to me and just said, like, I got you. Like, you don't have to live as if it's still happening to you. And in our work together, one of the things I was able to see was my role in that breakdown. And as weird as it sounds, that's really when the healing began, when I could see my participation in the breakdown of my previous marriage.
How incredibly courageous it is to actually, boldly come forward and state that women have their roles. And I know it's maybe not altogether popular now to talk on that frame. Talk to me a little bit what your perception is of the role of men and women.
Yeah, so it goes back to the beginning part of this story, of this interview, of being cheated on and what was my role. And I had to see that part of my role in it was I didn't respect my husband. And understanding that as a woman, our deepest craving is to be loved. And for a man, his deepest craving is to be respected. And so when that doesn't exist, and please no one take me wrong here, that didn't give him the license for sure to commit adultery. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I also have to look at what is my role, what is my role, right? Like, look, see, tell the dirty, rotten, stinking truth and take responsibility. And so my role was I didn't have respect for him. And I think a lot of the breakdown in the family today is that very thing, is that women aren't taught to respect their husbands, and not only respect their husbands, but just respect men, right? And on the flip side, men to love a woman and specifically to love his wife. And so what we see this like war, because what's inside, what God put inside a man is the desire for respect and to love his wife. And what God put inside a woman is to crave that love from her husband, and then also to respect him. But we have like this crazy voice on the outside, which is society, that tells a woman, like, you can do everything a man can, and you deserve to have this and you deserve that. And then a man is basically taught to be a woman. And so there's this whole war that's going on in their minds and in their hearts and then in their relationships, and everyone's acting like a puppet from somebody else on the outside instead of just being genuine. And so the book is really designed to give us an inside look at what happens when I'm a woman in all of my femininity and you're a man in all your masculinity.
So just to be very clear, Barbara, you're not proposing here of dumbing down women. As a matter of fact,
No.
even more power reach your role. And on the other hand, let men be man and honor that. I mean, what a,
Yes.
in today's world, I honestly, I couldn't have said that.
No.
As a man, I couldn't have said what you just said, and you went through about 3 or 4 things there so rapidly. I felt the need a little bit to pull it back, to wind it back a little bit, and pull a couple of those threads apart. And you had made one statement, okay, about the roles of men and women. Will you go a little deeper into that, and also then a little deeper into your accountability and your, I know a little difficult to talk about, but how potentially you demasculated your husband a little bit, and that contributed. And again, I want everyone to be really clear. There is no excuse for infidelity in a marriage. And so that's not what we're proposing. But what we are proposing, or what I hear Barbara suggesting, is that actually contributed a little bit to the meltdown of the relationship.
And so let's pick up there with my responsibility, and any of you who find yourself in a position or in an energy where you feel like you're the victim, I just encourage you, look at your responsibility, maybe not in the act, but look at your responsibility after. Like, we can choose our response to every situation and every circumstance we find ourselves in life, right? Like, we can choose to have it be the worst thing that ever happened to us, or the most amazing platform whereby we can inspire others and help them live a better life. So when we go back and look at roles, I don't really know why this disparity of not wanting to live the things that come very naturally, right? Like, there's a certain thing that God put in our heart as a woman to enjoy motherhood. And yet I even remember when I was raising my kids, and my ex would be like doing something fun, playing basketball with his friends. And I'd get so angry. Like, I can't believe you're not home. And now I worked all day and now I'm with the kids. And at that time, if I was able to settle my thinking and just go, listen to yourself, like, you're home with your children and you're complaining about it. Like, why are you complaining? Why not just like be happy in the moment and be so thrilled? I am enjoying time with my children. And then like a mixed role of a husband now, or for a lot of men, to be stay at home. And I'm not saying if you're a stay at home dad that's bad and it's better to be a stay at home mom. I'm simply looking at what is. And in my own experience, when I was the one that was out making the bacon and my ex was home taking care of the kids, there was like this constant war. And I definitely had this attitude, like, you owe me. Mm-hmm. I'm the one out like fighting the dragons and beating them down, and you get to be home. And yet it's what I chose. Like, I'm the one that chose to go for it in business.
Wow, that's pretty brave to actually make that statement, that you feel that your contribution and maybe part of the meltdown is actually demasculating your husband a little bit.
For sure I did, because I said, like, we have to have a strong practice, right? We have student loans and we have a certain lifestyle that we want to live. And I said, I'm better at business, which I think that I did have better skills, and I trained on them. And we knew that we didn't want to have our kids in daycare. So by default, he was home.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for so honestly addressing that, Barbara. I'd be curious to know your perception on what you think. And again, this is a pretty bold conversation. This is maybe not down the mainstream. And maybe that's okay, but we also see a lot of breakdowns right now of family. And I think everyone knows that I'm a huge advocate of women. I've spent my entire adult life fighting and advocating for powerful, strong, good women. But we get the other side of the coin, Barbara, where men do end up being compromised and being set aside as maybe not quite as relevant. And I'm very appreciative to you for actually pointing out that, no, men need to stand up and be men, and don't be wimpy little weak to stand by the side. Be real men, because we need you. Talk to me about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually an interesting conversation yesterday at the taping of Dan Clark said, it's really interesting that the thing that we want the most in life is the fairy tale. Like our fairy tale is really an indication of what we believe as society. And the fairy tale is still the damsel in distress and her Prince Charming saves her. Like, what man doesn't want to do that, and what woman doesn't want to have that, right? Like, I'm in, and I'm a really strong woman, and I still want to be rescued.
Let me interrupt there and say, really, you're talking to a woman who is just a thought leader through the world. This is a strong, bold woman.
Yeah.
And no way do you also want to be compromised on your ability to actually input externally, but you also want a tender, nurturing relationship.
Yeah, you know what it honestly is? It's just honesty and it's truth. Like, let's just get back to the truth. And the truth is, I love to be cared for well. I love my husband opening the door for me. Now, it doesn't matter. Yes, of course I can open a door. Like, get over yourself. You can open a door. But when I stand and he opens the door, it makes him feel like $1,000,000. And I love waltzing through and having him come after me. And I'm Alaskan, for those that don't know. And I get my snow machine or my quad stuck all the time. Could I get it out? I don't know. Maybe. But why? He loves to. So I just jump off it and wait, and he gets it out. And on I go. And I see friends of mine like struggling and hurting their bodies and all of this stuff to prove that they can do it. And I just don't have that desire to prove that I can do something that makes my husband so happy.
Okay, that's pretty bold statements, and thank you so much for so boldly speaking on that. I want to go just real quickly back to maybe just a little clarity on what you see the role of men and women, how you juggle this very delicate balance, because, I mean, it seems like we're out of balance one way or the other. I think the feminist movement, although it had a lot of merits of really empowering and giving women equality, maybe swung a little bit too far. Give your comments on, Barbara, how do you see the balance now? Having your first marriage was extremely difficult, didn't end well. Your second marriage is always, it's always takes work, but it's beautiful and bearing fruit and a much different outcome. Tell us and make suggestions maybe to the listeners of what you'd suggest of how to balance that role of being a powerful woman and not demasculating your man versus the first route.
So I'm going to use a story, if that's okay.
Please.
And so I heard Michael Neal talking about this in his book, The Inside Out Revolution. And he was talking about like, pretend, so I'm a coach. Pretend I had Rich that came to me and you were asking me for help on like, what am I supposed to do? Like I'm thinking about stepping in and taking over our family business, which is carpentry. And I'm not really as good at it as there's like another longing in my heart, but I feel like I should probably like step into that. And as his coach, if I'm like, oh yeah, like this is how you set up the business and this is how you market it and on and on and on, versus stepping back and asking you questions about like what's really in your heart and what brings you joy and where do you see God calling you. If I instead just kind of pushed you into a role, we would miss that his name's Jesus. And maybe being a carpenter isn't really the best thing for you, that they're bigger things. And so I really invite all of you, whether a man or a woman, your spouse, like look to bring out the best of them. Just like if you lead people at work, you're looking to bring out the best of them. And yet for some reason at home, a lot of times I see women wanting to shove their husbands down and form them into something, a house husband or a competitor. Like, I washed more dishes than you did. It's your turn to go do this, or it's your turn to change the diaper. It's your turn to do whatever. Like, just like slow your roll. And it's not a competition. It's like, it's a joy to serve our family. We all talk about like, we can't wait to be moms. We can't wait to get married. And then we're in those roles and we act like it's such a hardship. So I just encourage you to be so proud of yourself that you're in those roles and just fully live into them.
Thank you, Barbara. Now I want to hit the other side of that very, very clearly as man. Heaven forbid if you play the other side of that role, because that's why we have such a stinking bad rap. And you know what? Most of the time we deserve it. So, men, take a turn. I have a dear friend, and this is a strong, he's like an airborne ranger dangle out of helicopters with chainsaw. And he'll jokingly say, you know what the best aphrodisiac in my marriage is? And I know what he's going to say now. And he says, when I load the dishwasher. So, man, be mindful of the contribution that your significant other. Don't dummy your wives down. Never dummy your wives down, or your significant other, or your partner, or whatever your case may be. But love them, support them, and allow them to be the best manifest version of themselves. And I think women doing the same. I think that's what I heard from you is to allow your husband to manifest and push their hot buttons. I think it's wonderful, and I'm going to be curious what you see, but I think it's wonderful when my wife dresses up and tries to spice it up a little bit with me. And yeah, call it a raw out manipulation. That's how God worked it. Go for it.
Hey, work your strengths.
And play your role. And,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's where a lot of the joy comes in life.
You know, it's interesting that like fulfilling your role in the home has gotten such a bad rap. But every single person that works somewhere, you have a role to fill. And if you're not fulfilling that role, you're going to get fired. So why is it such a bad thing in the home to have specific roles and specific tasks that we're either good at or that you know, like it needs to be done, and so you do it? And you know, I think another thing is women, your husbands are not your best girlfriend. They're not.
Yeah.
Like they're just not wired to listen to every single detail. So make sure you have strong girlfriends and make sure that your husband has strong friends. Like I think it's really, really important that when you get married, that you remain lovers and have different best friends. It doesn't mean that this isn't the person you want to spend the majority of your time with, but there are lots of people on the planet who can be your best friend, but only one man or one woman who can be your lover.
I think that's beautiful, and I love to make the statement: how are you your wife's boyfriend, and how are you your wife's girlfriend? Let's see, did I get that wrong? Whatever.
Husband's girlfriend.
Husband's girlfriend.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it does take work. It takes effort, and it takes a little bit of mystique going on there. You have to continually work at that. Barbara, I want to shift gears here just real quickly, although that was a beautiful topic, and we could probably spend another 10 or 15 minutes on that. But I would like to go back tenderly to your story of when you have a very difficult relationship that have broken down, and then you transition, your children and the outcome there, and the efforts that you have taken to resolve your children and put healing into their lives and then restabilize their lives amidst the very difficult relationship breakdown.
You know, this goes back to a conversation I had at a coffee shop across the street from where my kids were in private school, and their sixth grade teacher, who was also a really good friend of mine. And this was like right after our divorce had been finalized. And I sat there weeping, just like, I want my kids to have a normal life. I want my kids to have like all of the normal things, all of the stuff I got to, you know, grow up with, because I was raised in a Christian home with parents who got married very young and just absolutely adore each other and work very hard on their marriage, but like definitely a storybook upbringing. And so I wanted that for my children. And she listened to me and she said, Barb, the fact that they're in a single parent home, that is the most common nowadays. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that way, right? So I was able to put that to rest. And then also just put to rest that they're not going to have the same upbringing I have. Like it's totally different characters.
And maybe that's okay.
And maybe that's completely okay. And that to assume that our kids are going to go through difficult times, whether divorce or some kids suffer abuse, and for it not to impact them isn't realistic.
Yeah.
So it is going to hurt. My kids are going to have scars that are different than what I grew up with. But that doesn't mean life has to be miserable. We can look at those scars. We can tell the dirty, rotten, stinking truth and take responsibility. Yeah. And you know, the other thing is I stopped treating them as if they were broken because they were from a single parent home. Like this is just our norm. Like this is just what's normal for us. And that just provided so much like a breath of fresh air in our home.
Thank you so much for boldly hitting it. And the thing that I really wanted to point out there is this: first of all, put structures in place like Barbara did. Face it, fierce with reality. Just go there and say, hey, yeah, it isn't. And we're not going to fake that this isn't a difficult situation, but make a better reality. You've all heard me talk deeply about symbols and rituals and traditions and doctrine and putting the stability points in place. And that's indeed pointing out exactly what Barbara did. But then the follow-up part of that is the courageous conversations that we have to have of going and facing and talking and not hiding and burying the wounds that do occur. The reality is I think we all dork our kids up in one way or another, right? It's just the reality of it. It's why I think actually our purpose for coming to this earth is to get this soul-stretching experience, to get more breadth and understanding. And part of that includes working through some hard things. And the problem is when we try covering them up, we try medicating them, we try ignoring them, all the recipes of the world, which don't work. We have to go towards the hurt and face it rather than run and hide away from it. What other advice or input might you give with this rich background that you've had in overcoming these challenges? What other advice would you give our listeners?
So it comes in childbearing. Like, number one, remember that this is all an experiment of raising your children to be adults, right? So this is the practice ground of the kind of adults that they're going to be. And so I just want to encourage women to raise your sons to be as strong as raising your daughters. You know, there's this huge push to raise strong daughters. And as a mother of a son, and obviously you and Gay have 5, I'm like, what about raising strong boys? Can we talk about raising strong boys to be men? We talk so much about raising women to like stand up for themselves and to like go after their goals and to be who they were designed to be. And we've forgotten about all of these boys that we're raising. Well, they have a right to be raised as strong men as well. And so I just encourage women, as you're looking at raising your children, remember they're not going to be raised the same. Like, a boy isn't the same as a girl, and the things that he needs and the things that she needs are completely different. And it is our responsibility as mothers to make sure that our sons do get to have a male role model. Like, you know, as a single mom, my son didn't have a male role model in our home. And when I married Ben, you know, at first it was difficult.
Yeah.
Because he's going to raise my son differently than I am. But I'm so grateful that he taught my son to do something I could never teach him to do, and that's to be a man. How to fix cars, how to, you know, like when Sammy was in college, none of the rest of the boys knew how to change a tire or change oil. And it gave him a way to kind of like, you know, toot his horn that he knew how to do these things. And I'm not saying women can't, just who wants to.
Yeah.
I don't want to change the oil or a tire. And
if
I'm
you're
not
a
gonna
woman
learn.
and you do that's okay. But I
Yeah.
think giving men the right to be men, and thank you so much for saying that. You know, my wife and I, Barbara, used to have a bunch of scholarships exclusively for women, young women, underprivileged. And one day my wife came in just hopping mad. You just met my wife. She's delightful, amazing, and no one can picture her hopping mad, but she was hopping mad. And she says, I'm terrified of this trend that's going on. And that is this enrollment of young men are going like this in college, enrollment young women. It's like, I think already it's like 60% of the graduates now are women. And she says, we got to stop this supporting young women and make sure it's young men, because there needs to be young men, viable young men, to be married to an equal partners in crime, and we got to stop dumbing down the young man. And so I think that's exactly what you're saying.
And it's not a competition.
Shouldn't be a competition.
Yeah, like there's room for all of us.
There's room for all, and actually, I think one of the key principles is we build each other. We actually rise to our glory of a little higher. There just doesn't need to be. You know, I do want to make one additive comment here also that's so important that I've seen in relationships, and that is the toxic nature when we actually tear each other down behind our backs. So if I could just give the strong encouragement that even if you're hopping mad, don't run to your girlfriends and tell them the laundry list of I know there's nothing more destructive it would be in my life than my wife to do that, and vice versa. You guys don't ever go say the old ball, the old chain, blah blah blah. That's just it's just like pouring toxic cancer wastewater into your relationship. So just let me, I know it's an interview with you, but I really feel strongly I want to put that piece in there. In your relationships, please don't tear each other down. I can honestly say, and there's times my wife should have thrown me out on my head and whacked me with a baseball bat for some of the stupid things that I did when I was younger. But, I can honestly say not one time, not one time, not one time, not one time ever has my wife degraded me publicly behind my back. So don't do that. All right, Barbara, I gave a final thought. You get one more.
Remember that love wins.
Love wins.
Yeah. And if you're going to compete at anything, compete at loving each other harder. Like my mom and dad always said, if my dad's full concern was to see how hard he could love my mom and care for her, and her full concern was to see how hard she could care for him and love him, probably going to be doing pretty good.
Love always wins.
Yeah. Instead of just focusing about am I getting everything met in this relationship? Because I know when my husband's happy, it makes me really happy. Like when he's celebrated among his peers and when he's doing great in his career and has had victories, I love that. Like that does great things for me. And he celebrates me as well.
Beautiful. Now, I also have to come back on the man's side of this. I can't help it. I was going to end it there, and I can't. Men, you're worse than the wife. Women are really good at doing that for us. You men, by heaven's sakes, and let me say that with every ounce of fervor I can, you celebrate and you build and you lift your wife, and it's going to make you a stronger, better man. So whatever you do, you lift and build your wife, and you reciprocate that great advice that Barb just gave there. All right. Thanks for joining us today. Courageous Conversations. Barbara, I really enjoyed the dialogue, and I actually learned a couple of beautiful pieces. I thank you for your courage. I thank you for holding the other side of the equation here with men and showing that, yeah, we can actually lift and build both. It was really delightful to hear that perspective and say things honestly that a old, stodgy, fuddy-duddy white man never really could. So thank you for courageously coming forward in this conversation. Go towards your fears. Face the hardest things in your life fierce with reality, and I look forward to seeing you back on the next Courageous Conversation.